Hey, this is Kieran, Coach's Corner Chats, and on the episode today, I have Zack Lewis. Zack, where are you at, and what are you up to?
I am currently a third grade teacher at Rosa Parks Elementary in Middletown, Ohio. It's located kind of between Dayton and Indiana, or Dayton, Indiana, Dayton and Cincinnati, and it's a great spot to be if you are an urban educator and want to see kids succeed. I've been in education now. I think this is my 14th year. So also coach some varsity football now and then, and just trying to stay busy, man. It's summertime. I'm hanging out with the kids, going swimming as many times a week as we can, and try to do field trips with the kids every day. So something new every day, something new and exciting.
What drew you to the elementary level as where you would end up teaching?
A lot of people ask the same question. They're like, you coach varsity football and you teach third grade. That makes zero sense. But actually, I was given the opportunity to volunteer as a high school student in one of the elementaries in Oak Hills School District. And ever since then, it just drew me to elementary ed because I hate to say it, but they don't like school yet. They still like coming to see their friends. They still like what the teacher has to say. They're on every word that you say. And if you make it fun and exciting, they can't wait to come back. So that intrigues me to be the elementary teacher because sometimes you're their whole world. So if you can make it fun, they want to come back. Unlike high school kids, no matter how fun you make it, they know they don't like to be there. So I really like to do be with the elementary kids, and just their curiosity and just wanting to be a part of things drew me to early ed.
And when you were doing the varsity football coaching, were you also teaching elementary?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what was that transition like when like the bell rang, you're done at school and you're done doing third grade kind of chatter, and then all of a sudden you have to change your mindset? What was that like, that transition?
It was I try to stay in the coaching mindset at all times because I think teaching is coaching. Just a different way of presenting. You're presenting plays and presenting X's and O's as a coach. You're presenting content as a teacher. So it's kind of the same thing. So I'm never out of that mode, but the language I use is vastly different just because I have to kind of bring it down to third grade level when I'm teaching. And then when I get to the high school kids, I can just speak freely and speak in their terms, and they kind of understand too. So it's not too hard. And I never coached where I've taught. Just it's never shaked out that way. I was usually at a charter school, either in Dayton or Cincinnati, and it never worked out that I was a teacher there. So I kind of had a drive. So during the drive, I could get my mind right and go over practice plans and things like that, and it would kind of get me in the mindset of moving on and getting into the next role for the day.
Do you see yourself getting back into coaching, or?
One day I do. I'm really passionate about coaching. It's one of the things that I look forward to. I like to do, but at the same time, I love spending time with my own kids. So it's hard for me to pour into somebody else's students sometimes, or kids, after my workday, just because I personally miss my kids so much that I want to be at home with them. So as of right now, I'd rather be at home coaching, teaching my kids, the way of life, than actually X's and O's of coaching at a high school. But hopefully, as Parker and Rory get older, I can jump back into it and kind of coach their sports and kind of be a part of what they're doing.
That the balancing act, and I think coaches go through this all the time at every level, is that balancing act of how much you pour into your own kids versus your other kids.
Absolutely.
Even with the teaching, I know you kind of, like you were talking about earlier, you're a positive impact on these young children. And I think for a lot of them, even just that male presence, which I think is cool too. What's it like? Because most people stereotypically think elementary teachers are female. So what do you, I guess, pressures, or what do you feel like you have to kind of be as a male in that situation?
I think it's twofold. One is a male in the role. You are you are some of these students' only male figure. So I placed myself on that level to where I don't want to mess to where I would be. It's hard to say. Like I don't want to be a negative influence at any time. So I want to always make sure I watch my words. I want to always make sure they see me in control. They see me doing things that I feel that other men should do, so they know how to act in certain situations. When I do mess up, because I mess up a lot, I tell them. I flat out say, "Hey, I made a mistake here. I shouldn't have done this," and I explain to them, "We're all human." Mr. Lewis tries to, hold himself to a new standard, a better standard. And I fell short of that. And I explained that to him. And they kind of see me as a regular person when I do that, and kind of explain to them why I acted the way I did or whatever happened. Maybe I raised my voice. Maybe I yelled at a kid in front of the class or whatever. And I let them know I'm sorry. And I don't think enough teachers do that, male or female. I think that more teachers need to be empathetic about their students and say, "Hey, I messed up." They need to see us as humans. And I think as my students do that as a male figure, they can see that, hey, it's okay to show emotion. It's okay to say sorry. And things like that as a male teacher, I think is really important to show your kids.
Is teaching, is that something, or even the coaching side, something that you wanted to do when you were growing up? Or what was kind of the impetus that at some point do you kind of remember, like, oh, I think I'd like to go into this? This would be cool.
Yeah, ever since my time at Muskingum College, my freshman year, they threw us right into a classroom and one of our early ed classes. It was way early. And just from being with those students and seeing light bulbs turn on and seeing how curious these kids are, it was at that point freshman year I knew that, okay, elementary ed is going to be my route. That I was told several times, hey, I know you want to coach varsity football, probably don't want to teach early ed. And I was like, yeah, early ed is where it's at for me. So just early on at Muskingum, they threw us into the fire and kind of showed us what it was going to be like, and I just ran with it.
Did you have the experience of doing middle school and high school as well at that time?
No, I did not. I actually did not opt to take a middle school or high school. I think just because I thought, um, high school, it was a different animal, and I just had so much experience with elementary eds since freshman year. I didn't even consider it.
That's awesome. I think the cool thing about it was it kind of just, you knew the spark and it was there.
Yep.
Um, and so when you're dealing with these third graders, what are some of the things that you bring to the classroom that you try to incorporate that kind of keeps their attention span and keeps them locked in, that you feel leads to success in the classroom?
The biggest thing, it's going to sound funny, but I learned it from my twin brother Jay, that enthusiasm is contagious. So if you are enthusiastic about what you're teaching, you're happy about what you're teaching, those kids are going to be happy about learning it. They're going to be happy about being in your classroom. And I think that's the most important thing for students, is to feel happy, feel loved, feel cared about. And as long as you're energetic, you're enthusiastic about what you're doing, I think it's just like coaching. They're going to grasp onto it, and they're going to really run with it.
I know from, because I follow you on social media, and I see that you are really big on like getting the kids active out of their seats and what have you. What's kind of the thought press behind all that?
Well, I lost around 100 pounds through CrossFit. I was able to do a piece for CrossFit. They followed me around during a level 1 certification and threw that on the internet. Um, but I feel that in my position as an educator, I can help students reclaim their health almost, because where we teach, there's not a lot of talk about healthy eating, healthy lifestyle, and things like that. So I really want to show that to my students, because they don't get it at home, either because their parents don't know, or they just they're just too busy to figure it out. And I really want to bring that to the classroom. And I really, this year is going to be a new thing that I start, is exercising in the classroom. Every morning we're going to start off with some sort of exercise. It's going to be a 10-minute in and out kind of thing. But ever since COVID, they're used to bringing water bottles. So we're going to work out, and my thing used to be, okay, they get tired and need to get drinks. It takes too long. Now we're all going to have water bottles. So it's not going to take too long. They can get their own drink out of their water bottle. And I'm really excited just to teach them to move. I plan on being in the new building in Rosa Parks. We're working on challenge-based learning. And one of my things is going to be health and fitness. What is it to you? And I'm going to bring that to the table. We're going to introduce new foods on Fridays. We're going to try to pair with different people in our community to try to teach these students how to live healthy, how to be healthy. And it's just one of those things that I was 100 pounds overweight. I still am working on it. I was 400 pounds almost. And the amount of life that you can bring back to yourself and be able to move and be able to be free is amazing. And I just want other students to know what it's like to be healthy.
The first thing I think of is like impressed that you've been able to lose the 100 pounds. So congratulations on that. And it sounds like you're still working at it. The cool thing that I love about everything that you're saying is like whatever you're doing with your life, you're trying to share that with younger impact. Like you said, they're like sponges right now. They
Yep.
soak it up. So if you can impact a kid that now all of a sudden they start eating fruits and vegetables each day when they get home, or get caught up into some of the healthier smoothies or whatever it is that you guys bring in. I think it's cool because like you said, and I know just from being in the district and having kids in the district and stuff, it's really hard sometimes for kids to know what's even beyond their four house block
Yes.
or neighborhood. So they need people like you making that positive impact. And I think the cool thing is for them is like you talked about earlier about making a mistake and owning up to it. The fact that you could say, look, I could have been healthier and I'm making a change. So you can change it at any time. And I'm an actual model of what could occur. So I think that's really awesome on your part.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I try to show the students too, instead of just telling them, hey, this is what I did. I show them the YouTube video. So before I didn't have that impact to where they could see me before and see me now, and see kind of what I'm doing now. And now they get to see the video and they're like, oh, he's right. It did happen. He does do that. So it's cool just to be able to show them, and they're all about the YouTube right now. So anything they see on YouTube is golden.
Yeah. I was going to say too, that gives it some like reality to it. It's not like, oh, he's just saying we need to drink lots of water every day, or we need to get exercise for 60 minutes a day. It's like, no, I've literally been going through it. I know, just like I said, from the social media, you post, things of your workouts. I know even with your kids, that you try to get them active and out and about. Was that one of the impetus was when you started having the little ones, your own, that you were like, dude, I got to change some things?
Yeah, actually, right before we had Parker, I tore both patella tendons off my kneecaps at the same time and spent 8 months in a hospital bed. So I missed a lot of things physically with Parker. Like, all dads want to teach their kid how to ride the bike and be the one running next to him. And I couldn't do that because my knees were so messed up. And then I gained so much weight, I couldn't move after that either. So just being able to get back into it with the kids, and now I'm able to go play. I'm able to run now. I'm able to do all these different things. Before I couldn't, and that's the reason. One of the reasons I've lost the weight is because I want to be able to be there for my kids. If they need to be carried out of a house, if they need, whatever they need, I want to be able to do it. And there was a point in my life right before I had them, I couldn't save myself. So that's kind of the mentality I bring into workouts is I have to be able to save myself and my family. And losing the weight was part of that.
Now, back in the day, when it comes to football and what have you, did you play at Muskingum?
Yeah, I played at Muskingum for 3 years. I was a right tackle. It was one of the best experiences of my life. It was really fun. I got hurt my senior year. I tore my MCL 3 years in a row. And then senior year, my dad's like, hey, look, I know you really like this, but we're not going to be able to repair a fourth MCL. So let's slow that down. So it is what it is. I coached with the varsity team at Muskingum. learned a lot about coaching then, and then took that on when I graduated.
What was it about the college experience that you fell in love with?
Just being away from home and having to grow up, having to actually know, your own schedule without somebody telling you, hey, this is where you got to be, and just being able to complete things on my own instead of, in high school was always like my mom or dad reminded me, hey, you got to do this or that, you got to get this done. And in college, it wasn't about that. It was all about you and how you could get it done. And if you weren't getting it done, you weren't going to graduate. So I kind of put that on my shoulders to be able to get things done and be able to realize it was all about my choices and what I was going to do.
Did you feel like you were ready for that transition, or was it kind of a bumpy road? Because I mean, I have kids now, they're like, I want to go play college soccer. And I continue to have to tell them, like, look, dude, it's a grind. Like, what was that kind of transition when you made from high school to the college ranks?
Physically, it wasn't that different because we played under Coach Sheehan and his staff that had a different aspect back then. Of we were working out constantly. We weren't taking days off. We were, they would meet us in the hallway. We'd be doing these speed drills called dots. I remember fondly of Coach Willard's. We were in 8th grade and going to be 9th graders, and he'd call us down a hallway before one of our classes. And he'd have these dots outside of our classroom, and we'd have to do them before we went to class. It was terrible, but doing that kind of stuff just prepared us for college, just physically to be able to do it. Now, mentally, it was a different story with class. I wasn't really ready for it that way. I didn't really understand that I was going to have to study and put in time, put in effort to be able to pass. I just thought I was just going to be like, oh, here I am, let's go. Just like high school, it was vastly different. So in that aspect, school-wise, just putting my nose to the grindstone that way was a big wake-up call my freshman year.
The one thing too that I just heard was talking about the coach with the dots outside his room. Have coaches like him and others, I'm assuming there's some at Muskegon as well, have they had that impact that now you've seen what they've done with you that you can now start doing with like your own classroom, your own children, et cetera?
Yeah, absolutely. Coach Willard's, Coach Everhart was there when we were when we were at Oak Hills, and Coach Sheehan and Coach Flick. They were all there, and I try to model a lot of myself after a lot of different coaches. I take and steal pieces of them and put them in my own way. Coach Flick, he was our line coach, Coach Flickinger, and it was never a day he didn't have time for us. If we needed something, he'd make sure he'd make the time before or after practice, whenever we had to talk to him. So I take that from him. Coach Willards was a guy that always had us working as hard as possible, doing everything we could. So I always take that piece from him. So with my students, that's where I get the workout thing from, is Coach Willards. He'd always have us do it no matter what. And that's just kind of like a discipline thing. And it really helped me out. And then Coach Sheehan, if you ever get a chance to meet this guy, you should go meet him. You should have him on a podcast. You should figure it out to talk to him. He could motivate a light pole outside. He was one of the guys that he would say something, we'd run through the wall. We couldn't wait to play for him. So those coaches I was always able to pick things from them. And then even my dad, he wasn't one of my coaches, but he always showed us what hard work looked like. He always showed us, waking up in the morning, going to work. He'd referee. So he would referee on Saturdays before our games. He'd meet us at our games. And just seeing that just made us realize, we had to work hard. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And then those coaches, I took those pieces from them, and then instill those into my students. And hopefully one day one of them comes back and tells me, hey, your enthusiasm made me do whatever. And that's just what I hope. And I've reached out to these coaches and told them kind of the impact they've had on me. And it's just nice. I just want them to know how I feel and things like that.
I think the cool thing is, like, even as you went through, like you said, I don't want to coach just like Coach Sheehan or whatever it's kind of picked, and Willard,
Yeah.
and et cetera. It's kind of cool that you've picked things like, I really like this, I really like that. on there. Was there, let's go the opposite direction. What were some things maybe, and you don't have to be specific about people, but what were some things that you went through that you're like, man, I just didn't really enjoy that experience when it came to athletics?
Um, the biggest thing was like there was always a coach that wanted us to play one sport, like focus on that sport.
Hmm.
And that is one thing I never, ever want to have anywhere in my vocabulary is one sport, is just because students need to be well rounded. And that's not only in education and culturally and whatever, but they need to reach out and play other things. And that's the only thing I think that bothered me during my playing years is there's always one or two that always say, hey, you got to pick. And instead of picking, I think everybody should play everything.
I think the cool thing too is like when you say that, I think about your classroom, you're talking about exercising and health, and then on top of curriculum and all that kind of stuff, which is something else I've caught on to is so many teachers, I think, get so caught up in, well, I've got to get through these standards and I have to get through this. And you clearly see them as a whole person. If they're an athlete or if they're a student or even as your children, like they're going to be good at some things and need to work on other things. And I think that's like a cool holistic look on things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's changed through the years. I wasn't like that all the time. I mean, my beginning years, it was all about what I wanted them to do, how I wanted them to sit, and it was all just like Georgian kind of things. And now I've learned that I don't care if they're sitting down, standing up, or laying down while I teach. As long as they're getting the information, I don't care how they're getting it, as long as they're getting it. And that's kind of the fun thing about class is having them learn the way they want to learn. If they want to learn on the ground, let them learn on the ground. There's no playbook of how they're going to learn. You got to meet them where they are, not where you want them, or you're going to have a heck of a year if you don't meet them where they are. So I just like to do that for them and be able to be that understanding of, hey, I have ADHD myself. I can't sit for longer than 15 minutes and pay attention. How am I going to expect these third graders, second graders to pay attention that long? So just getting up and moving around is one of the biggest things we can do in education, I think.
I I love it because it's again like another example of like I'm living it. I've been there. I know. The other thing I liked about your comment was when I started out, I did it this way, and I realized it wasn't getting it wasn't true to you. I think is maybe a way of saying it. And you were able to say, look, I'm going to try it my own way. And if kids learn, if they enjoy being in my class, and like you said, even the impact, that's what people always ask me about, like, hey, how was your season? All this type of stuff. I'm like, I don't know. Ask me in like 5, 10 years when I see these guys, and I'll tell
Right.
you when they're doing positive things in the community, they're married, they have kids, and all that. So, like you said, when that kid graduates and says, "Hey, Mr. Lewis, you made a huge impact on me," all the way back at Rosa Parks in third grade, um, type of thing. Which again, it goes back to your like being able to say, I don't know what I'm doing perfectly, and being able to like say it's not working and to try something different, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, thanks. Absolutely. Yeah. That's one of the things about education. We always don't have the right answer. Yeah, we're up there, we're teaching, we're supposed to have the right answer. We're supposed to know exactly how this is going to go. And we planned it and we have the assessment, we have everything ready, and then it goes sideways. You just have to be ready for it.
Yeah.
And you got to tell them, hey, I messed this up. I introduced it wrong. I did such and such. Because if not, they're not going to know you're human, and they're not going to be able to be a part of your classroom in the way that you need them to. So I tell them, just be real with them. There's no sense not to be real, not to have them understand where you're coming from.
You mentioned earlier your brother. So I had him on uh, like way at the beginning of this when I opened this podcast up, and he talked about Oak Hills football and strength and conditioning, and he was awesome and all that type of stuff. What's it like having him? Uh, this like having a brother. I think you mentioned a twin, which I didn't even know you guys were twins.
I'm the better
What
looking one.
Yeah. So what's it been like having like he's in the football mix, he's part of education as well. What's that been like as you both have kind of gone through all of this?
It's really neat to see him kind of grow as an educator and a coach at the same time. He wasn't always in Cincinnati. He always wasn't local. He was in California for a while, and I didn't get to see him and didn't get to do things with him and talk to him every day. So now that he's back, he's kind of without knowing, he's influenced me a lot through just like with my injury, and if he would call me and I'd be down in the dumps or whatever. And he's enthusiastic about everything. So just talking to him and talking things with him, that it's not as bad as you think it is, really helped. And his enthusiasm is contagious, as talking to him. He's done some things that he told me about, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah. But to see him in action is something that I love to see. I try to go to his games on Friday nights and be on the sideline and kind of just watch, and just how he interacts with his players is the same thing how he interacts with his students. He's enthusiastic with them. He shows them that he cares. And I try to model that as well, because showing the kids that you care is half the battle. And I think he does that day in and day out. And one of the cool things, I don't even know if he mentioned it on your podcast, is he's really into special education and PE. And he worked out some deal with Bailey Place, which is a old folks home. They have a pool, and he worked out a deal where he could take his special ed students and get in the pool with them and kind of teach them different things, and just have them be in the pool to learn how to swim. Some of them just used it to be able to stretch and move their body more or better in a different way. And that's one of the things he told me about. I was like, man, that sounds really neat. Possible to pull off. But man, darn if he didn't. He bust him. He got a bus over to him and a bus over to Bailey Place in Delhi. He set something up that I don't think has ever been done at Oak Hills High School. So just the stuff that he does is amazing. And he doesn't even talk about it just because he doesn't want to get that recognition, but he works really hard.
I was going to say that never came up. And I know he was very focused, and everything he kept talking about was very similar to you. It's all about the kids. It was all about his football players. It was all about creating, positive experiences, like long lasting impact. And the cool thing for me, because I know from teaching, and you probably know, is that you'll get siblings that come through, and one sibling is completely different than the other, just in the way that they deal about education, about everything, their personality. But I think the cool thing is, listening to you and him, is you're both kind of making the same kind of impact, maybe in a different way. But the stuff you were saying is the same stuff you were just talking about earlier, about what you want to have in your classroom with your own children, and what have you. Is that a testament to your parents, or where do you think that's come, that the two of you seem to have this very positive outlook, enthusiasm, energy? I keep hearing all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think it's from our parents for sure. Just because the way we were raised is we always try to look at the positive point. And the biggest thing I think where it comes from is just having that bond between us two, that we're always together. We always had somebody to hang out with. It wasn't like, we were 2 or 3 years older apart and we had our own friends, our own people. We hung out with the same people, and we hung out with each other and just created a bond that is just, you can't really explain it, but we're kind of like two peas in a pod, man. We're the same people, just in different places.
I think it's really cool too that he kind of ventured off to the West there for a bit, and then he came back, and I think it's one of those, they say you don't know what you miss until it's gone or whatever. And then when he comes back, you're like, dude, having you this close where I can drive 45 minutes and watch you actually do your thing on the sidelines, or to catch dinner, or probably to see him playing with your kids and all that kind of stuff, is huge. Let's look forward ahead. What things does Mr. Lewis have in tap for, do you have any aspirations, goals, any wild things like that maybe on your plans?
My biggest thing is just keep doing what I'm doing. Kind of stay steady with myself physically, and try to keep heading down the same path as I am now. But I really want to get into the CBL thing, the challenge-based learning with Rosa Parks. It's going to be one of the coolest things I think I've done in education. And I just want to build upon that. I've already learned about it. I went to a couple of different seminars, things like that, had a 3-day seminar with it. And the biggest thing is I just want to be the best teacher I can be. And right now it's in challenge-based learning. And that's what I want to do. I want to bring in as much things as I can about challenge-based learning and take it to my students and have them branch out And I really want to be a classroom that brings in the community. Now that COVID's whatever it is now, I don't even know what to say what it is, but to be able to bring these people into our classroom. I want to bring athletes into our classroom. I want to bring government officials into our classroom. I want to bring just anybody I can to get in front of my students that are positive and create a bond with them that they're going to come, the older people, the people in the community will come back and check them out throughout the year. I think it's really big. And I'm going to actually try to contact you here in a little bit and try to see, hey, I want your soccer players in my building. I want your soccer players in my classroom, help them with, addition, subtraction, whatever they're comfortable with, because we need the help. And I think athletes coming into our building with their jersey on and talking about, what they're doing outside of the classroom is really big. And we always see those football players. They're always around. Mm-hmm. We don't see a soccer player with their uniform coming to our building much. And I think it'd be pretty sweet for even, once or twice to come in, but something we can work out together that we figure it out. I mean, you guys practice right there. We could probably figure something out, but that's one of my big things this year is to get positive influences in front of my kids as much as possible.
Just to kind of let people know what it is, what exactly is challenge-based learning?
Challenge-based learning is bringing a question to the table, whatever it is, and the students answer it, however they want. So most times in education, the assessment is based on the teacher. The teacher says, okay, you're going to answer these questions and write these essays, and that's how you're going to show me that you know the information. Challenge-based learning takes that and says, you show me what you know any way you know how. You might not be great at writing, but you can film yourself talking about the topic. You can do that. You like to write poems. You can write a poem about the topic and tell me your knowledge that way. You can write a song. You can do anything you want to show me the knowledge, to whereas traditional education is sitting down and having to take a test. Mm-hmm. Well, not many times in your job or my job, we sit down and take a test. We don't do that. We get our information across any way we can. And that's how challenge-based learning, in my mind, is going to be this year. Is they're going to give me their knowledge the best way they know how, and we're going to go from there.
The one thing that popped in my head was words problem solving.
Yes.
So it's more of like, here's an issue we've got. How can we deal with it? And I know, just like you brought up YouTube as being golden for the kids. They love that kind of stuff. Like, they learn so much from that, and TikToks and Instagrams and all this type of stuff. So there's so many different avenues. And we constantly talk about it in our soccer setting, is like, hey, this is here. What are some options to look at, or what could we do to get out of here? Type of things. And I think that's something I hear a lot is kind of like lacking for kids nowadays, because they're very like, just tell me what to do. So yeah, I think that's going to be what kind of, I guess, not to use a pun, but what challenges do you expect to have with challenges or challenge-based learning?
The biggest challenge I think about challenge-based learning is me just learning to let go, because there's going to be students in kind of all corners of your classroom doing different things, where usually in a traditional setting, they're doing the same thing in groups. To where a group over here might be working on a song, and a group over here might be working, strictly on paper pencil. So just me letting go and stop. I don't want to think for my students. I want them to problem solve by themselves. So me just stepping back and just listening and becoming an avenue for them to take their knowledge a different way, I think is going to be really important. So the biggest challenge is going to be me stepping back, understanding that they can do it. I just got to get out of their way.
I think we as coaches or teachers always try to keep boundaries. Like, you got to be within this kind of boxed area. So I think I completely appreciate the idea of like, okay, the other fact that is being able to kind of coordinate, like, there's so many different activities that could possibly be going on, and to constantly be able to make some positive impact on each group as you go. So I think it's really cool, and I'm excited to hear about it. And follow along and see kind of how your journey goes.
Absolutely. I can't wait.
With that, is there any aspirations of getting back into coaching?
There is. I just don't know how to do it the best way I can to be the best father I can be and the best coach I can be. I don't want to be 50% coach, 50% dad. Um, I don't feel that if I'm away from them, I used to coach and come home at 8 o'clock, eat dinner and go to bed and do it all over again. Well, my kids go to bed at 8 o'clock. So if I'm coming home when they're going to bed, I'm not, I'm not being the dad I want to be.
Yeah.
I want to be there. I want to be around. I'm a hands-on kind of guy. And I don't know if I can step away from that and coach until they're older, and hopefully I can coach something they're on. I can volunteer for something that they're doing, but it's hard to step away from them and be away from my family that long. It sounds cliche or whatever, but I don't know. I do want to coach eventually, but just the thought of not coming home and being with them and being with my wife and kids is hard to think about right now. And when I was done coaching and finally came home for the first time at 4:30, 5 o'clock, was like, oh my gosh, we got so much time. What can we do? It was just different. And I don't know if I can go back to that yet, but eventually, hopefully I feel that I could go back and be a positive impact for a high school team somewhere along the way.
The one thing too that I've heard throughout, it seems like family is really important to you. It's been your brother. You've spoken really highly of your dad, like with his refereeing and just that positive role model. And then now just that, like the realization of holy smokes, 3 hours. And some people are like, oh, it's just 3 hours. You're like, no, that's like a lifetime. And I get to do that every day now with my kids. Has family been something? Has that always been something that's kind of been important for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Ever since I can remember, family was important and being together. And my family, my immediate family being Parker and Rory and Alicia, we're always together. We're always trying to do things together. But, my brothers and my sister and my mom and dad, we might not see each other all the time, but we're talking to each other all the time. And I think it's really important. And that's where that comes from is, I might not see them all the time, but they're always on my mind, and their influences are always with me. So I try to take that and pour that into my kids too, because I want to be around. I want to be around for what they're doing. It's really important for me.
If you had advice to give, like someone's watching now and they're a youth coach, they're like, third grade is 7, 8 years old, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
In that kind of 6 to 10 years old, what type of things do you see in the classroom that you would bring to like a practice for that age group?
My biggest thing is don't take anything too serious. Things are going to happen and things are going to go wrong. And you just got to be okay with that. You got to let it roll off your back and keep moving. There's going to be a kid that has some kind of behavior issue. You can't take it home and feel that it's your fault. You just have to learn to deal with it and learn to kind of put it behind you and keep putting your best foot forward to be able to, reach everybody that you need to.
And I'm going to assume that you're going to say that it's not very easy.
No, it's not very easy. It's not very easy, but I think with not taking everything so serious, it becomes easier. That's my biggest thing is be enthusiastic about what you're teaching and what you're doing, what you're coaching, and not take it so serious that no third graders winning a scholarship at that particular weekend. Right. So keep that in mind as you're going forward, and keep it fun for everybody. There's no reason to take it serious.
I think perspective is always huge. And just kind of priorities, like clearly you've got your priority list is, I've got to take care of myself, for my family, and for me, my education. I've got an opportunity now to make an impact at Rosa Parks with this new kind of curriculum setup, which is really cool. And the cool thing for me is it seemed you kind of evolving. Like you even said, when I started out teaching, I was very like, you're doing it this way. And now you've gone like, it's a full 180. Now you're like, I don't know what you kids are going to do.
Right. So here we go. We're going to do it. We'll find out how to do it together.
Yeah. And we'll figure it out, which I think is so cool. Because I think people always say as you get older, you get, you mature and you start like realizing things, more important things. I think that the thing that's cool for, I think, some coaches to hear is that ability. Like it was a tough decision to give up coaching, but in the long run for you right now, it was the right one to do.
Yeah, absolutely. It is one of the hardest things that I've decided, but like you said, for my family, it's the best. And what I get to do now is I'm trying to get a student. I'll have a student teacher this year, and I kind of take that as my coaching now. Is when college students come in to learn, I take that as my chance to coach, my chance to show them how education can be and how you can be as a teacher, and kind of let them mold themselves into a teacher and be able to coach as we go. So that's how I get my coaching in now, is have student teachers come in and help them out as best I can.
That's awesome. That is so cool. Zach, this has been awesome. It's been cool because like I was excited because you were kind of like a little bit of step back from coaching, but you've had that experience, and then just kind of bringing in like, the experience of dealing with youth kids and what have you, and just that balance, that struggle of family versus coaching and what have you. If people want to connect with you and kind of follow up, and maybe it's with the ChallengeBased, or if it's just to kind of touch base about like your health type thing, which I think when we get off, I'll get that link and we'll throw it up there about the CrossFit.
Yeah,
I think that would be really cool and inspirational for people. And just, I think the awesome thing about this is I think we connect with multiple types of people that might be listening or watching. I think is really awesome about this. But what's a great way for people to kind of connect and follow you?
I think the easiest way is on Twitter. I think you're going to say, hey, what's your Twitter handle thing? And I'm going to say, I have no idea. My phone's dead. I can't look it up.
No, that's all right. I'll put it in the notes.
Yeah, you can do that, or even reach out and just send me a message, and we can hook up that way. But the easiest thing I think is through Twitter or email or whatever. So,
okay.
However they get a hold of me is great.
That's awesome. I'll put all of that info on there. Zach, I've really enjoyed this chat. I'm going to shut it down. This is Karen with Coach's Corner Chats with Zack Lewis, and I'm out. Peace.
Later.